Alright, dear viewers, and the primordial ooze that watches me from unknowable eons away. I know you're all listening, thanks for tuning in, and I've got a pretty chill show for you tonight. So what we got here is something I've actually been wanting for quite a while. I'll show it to you. We got Bareface whiskey, Canadian whiskey, triple oak, hide nothing, fear nothing, aged 7 years. This is 42.5% alcohol. I dropped the tag. I thought I picked it up, but I don't have it here, so I'm sorry about that. And we've got a classic glass. It's not the best that I could find, but that's kind of cool looking. Let's see if we can crack this open. Come on, you bitch. Oop. Can't swear on YouTube. This may be explicit, and I don't have an editor, so. I really like the way that the bottle looks, you know. It's got cool little scratches on it, and they're actually, they're actually textured. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, here you go. It's got a little rip in the thing where the scratch is. Okay. What do you think, a double? That's probably more than a double. But that seems like enough for me. I hope that my friends watching, the beloved people tuning in to me right now, enjoy the show. This is a book I've been trying to get for a while. Well, not a while, I actually just found out about it earlier, but I recently found out on Reddit that my favorite author in the world, well, one of them, wrote Westerns, and that author would be Robert E. Howard, the man behind Conan. The man behind Conan himself. Got a premium copy. We got our comic books. We got BoJack, Bender, Spider-Man versus the Punisher. It's just a book I spread out. Some other interesting knickknacks, but I'll show you those later. Don't have a table for my whiskey, so I'm just gonna have to put it on the ground. And you guys are gonna go over there soon. So, what we have here is Robert E. Howard's Western Stories, The End of the Trail. Edited with an introduction by Rusty Burke. I will not be reading that to you right now. I already read the first story. It was okay. Christmassy. Unpopular opinion. I'm not super into Christmas. Anyway, it was an interesting story. This book was kind of pricey, but I needed to have it as soon as I heard about it, you know. So shout out to that guy on Reddit, because I wouldn't have known about it otherwise. It's kind of weird that I haven't looked into Robert E. Howard up until now. So without further ado, I am going to read a little bit. This is a good spot. What do you think? And I doubt you can hear me very well. I'll take these off so I can see. The End of the Trail. This is called Drums of the Sunset. And I don't know anything about it, really. Chapter 1, The Wanderer. Now come all you punchers, and listen to my tale, when I tell you of troubles on the Chisholm Trail. Steve Harmer was riding Texas fashion, slow and easy. one knee hooked over the saddle horn, hat pulled over his brows to shade his face. His lean body swayed rhythmically to the easy gait of his horse. The trail he was following sloped gradually upward, growing steeper as he continued. Cedars flanked the narrow path, with occasional pines and junipers. Higher up, these gave place to pines. Looking back, Steve could see the broad, level country he had left, deeply grassed and sparsely treed. Beyond and above, the timbered slopes of the mountains frowned. Peak beyond peak, pinnacle beyond pinnacle, they rose, with great undulating slopes between, as if piled by giants. Suddenly, behind the lone rider came the clatter of hoof. Steve pulled aside and let the horsemen by, but they came to a halt beside him. Steve swept off his broad-brimmed hat. There were two of the strangers. One was a girl. To Steve, she seemed strangely out of place, somehow, in this primitive setting. She sat on her horse in an unfamiliar manner, and her whole air was not of the West. She wore an Eastern riding habit. And then Steve forgot her clothes as he looked at her face. A vagrant curl, glinting gold in the sun, fell over her white forehead, and from beneath two soft gray eyes looked at him. Her full lips were half parted. "Say, you!" A rough voice jarred Steve out of his daydreams. The girl's companion was characteristically Western, as she was not. He was a heavily built man of middle life, thickly bearded and roughly clad. His features were dark and coarse, and Steve noted the heavy revolver which hung at his hip. This man spoke in a harsh, abrupt manner. "Who are you? And where do you reckon you're going?" Steve stiffened at the tone. He shot a glance at the girl, who seemed rather pale and frightened. "My name's Harmer," he said shortly. "I'm just passing through." "Yeah?" The bearded lips parted in a wolfish grin. "I reckon, stranger, you done lost your way. You should have took that trail back yonder a ways that branched off to the south." "I ain't said where I was going," Steve responded, nettled. "Maybe I have reason for going this way." That's what I'm thinking," the bearded man answered. Steve sensed the menacing tone in his voice. "But you may have reason for taking the other trail yet. Nobody lives in these hills, and they don't like strangers. Be warned, young feller, and don't get into something you don't know nothing about." And while Steve gaped at him, not understanding, the man flung a curt order to the girl, and they both sped off up the trail, their horses laboring under the stress of quirt and spur. Steve watched in amazement. By golly, they don't care how they run their broncs uphill. How do you reckon all that rigmarole went? What do you reckon all that rigmarole meant? Maybe I ought to taken the other trail. At that, golly, that was a pretty girl. The riders disappeared on the thickly timbered slope, and Steve, after some musings, nudged his steed with his knee and started on. I'm going west and punch Texas cattle, $10 horse and $40 a saddle. Crack! A sharp report cut through the melody of his lazy song. A flash of fire stabbed from among the trees further up the slope. Steve's hat flew from his head. His horse snorted and reared, nearly unseating his rider. Steve whirled his steed, dropping off on the far side. His gun was in his hand, and he peered cautiously across his saddle in the direction from which the shot had come. Silence hovered over the tree-massed mountainside, and no motion among the intertwining branches betrayed the presence of the hidden foe. I'll put you back down for a second. Probably right there. Woo! Oh my goodness. That's warm. At last, Steve cautiously stepped from behind his horse. Nothing happened. He sheathed his gun, stepped forward, and recovered his hat, swearing as he noted the neat hole through the crown. Now, did that whiskered galoot stop up there someplace and sneak back for a crack at me, he wondered? Or did he tell somebody else to? Or did that somebody else do it on their own idea? And what is the idea? What's up in them hills that they don't want seen? And was this sharpshooter trying to kill me or just warn me? He shook his head and shrugged his shoulders. Anyway, he meditated as he mounted, I reckon that south trail is the best road after all. The south branch he found led down instead of up, skirting the base of the incline. He sighted several droves of sheep, and as the sun sank westward, he came upon a small cabin built near a running stream of clear water. "Hiya! Get down and set!" greeted the man who came to the door. He was small. Bleh. That was kind of bad, huh? "Hiya! Get down and set!" greeted the man who came to the door. He was a small, wizened old fellow, remarkably bald, and he seemed delighted at the opportunity for conversation with Steve's coming afforded. But Steve eyed him with a suspicious glance before he dismounted. "My name is Steve Harmer," and Steve abruptly, "I'm from Texas, and I'm just passing through. If you hone for me to ride on, just say so, and there won't be no need for slinging lead at me." "Heh heh heh," laughed the old fellow. "Son, I can read your brand. You done fell in with my neighbors of the Sunset Mountains." "A tough-looking hombre and a nice-looking girl," Steve admitted, "and some fellow who didn't give his name, but just ruined my best hat." "Light!" commanded the old man. "Light and hobble your bronc. This ain't no motel, but maybe you can struggle along with some accommodations. My name is Hardluck Harper, and I aim to live up to that handle. You ain't by no chance got no corn juice in them saddlebags?" "No, I ain't," Steve answered, dismounting. "I was afeard not," sighed the old man. "Hard luck I be to the end I come in. I smell that deer meat a-burning." After a supper of venison, sourdough bread, and coffee, the two sat on the cabin stoop and watched the stars blink out as they talked. The sound of Steve's horse cropping the luxuriant grass came to them, and a night breeze wafted the spicy scents of the forest. "This country is sure different from Texas," said Steve. "I kind of like these mountains, though. I was figuring on camping up among 'em tonight. That's why I took the west trail. She goes on to the Rifle Pass, don't she?" "She don't," replied the old man. "Rifle Pass is some south of the trail, and this is the trail to that small but thriving metropolis. That trail you was following meanders up them hills, and where she goes, nobody knows." "Why don't they?" "For two reasons. The first is, there's no earthly reason for a man in his right mind to go up there, and I'll refer you to your hat for the second." "What right has that bird got to bar people from these mountains?" "I think this must be a 30-30 caliber," grinned the man. "That feller you met was Gillum Merkin, who lays out to own them mountains, like. And the gal was his niece, I reckon, what come from New York." "I don't know what Gill is up to." "I've knowed him, off and on, for 20 years, and never knowed nothing good. I'm his nearest neighbor now, but I ain't got the slightest idea where his camp is." "Up there somewhere." He indicated the gigantic brooding bulk of the sunset-blocked mountains, blackened beyond the stars. "Gilla's got a couple fellers with him, and now this gal. Nobody else ever goes up that hill trail. The men come up here a year ago." Steve mused. "And what do you reckon on his ID for discouraging visitors?" The old man shrugged his shoulders and shook his head. "Son, I've wondered myself. He and his pards live up in them mountains, and regular once a week, one of 'em rides to Rifle Pass, or maybe clean to Stirrup east. They have nothing to do with me or anybody else. I've wondered, but gosh, they ain't a chance." "Ain't a chance of what?" "Steve," said Hardluck. His lean hand indicated the black vastness of the hills. "Somewhere up there among them canyons and gorges and cliffs is a fortune. And Sometimes I wonder if Gillimerkin ain't found it. It's 40 years ago that me and Bill Hanson come through this tree. First white man in it so far as I know. I was nothing but a kid, and then we was buffalo hunters. Kinda strayed from the regular course. We went up into them hills, Sunset Mountains, the Indians call 'em, and away back somewhere as we come into a range of cliffs. Now it don't look like it'd be that way looking from here, but in among them mountains, they's long chains of cliffs, straight up and down, maybe 400 feet high, clay and rock, mighty treacherous stuff. There's maybe 17 of them sets of these in the cliffs, ramparts we call them, and they look just alike. Trees along the edge, thick timber at the base. The edges is always crumbling and starting landslides and avalanches. Me and Bill Hanson come to the front of one of these ramparts, and Bill was looking at where the earth of the cliff face had kind of shelved away when he let out a whoop. Gold! Reef gold! The blamedest vein you ever seen! Just lying there right at the surface, ready for somebody to work out the ore and cart it off. We dropped our guns and laid into the cliff with our fingernails, digging the dirt away, and the vein looked like she went clear to China. Get that, son. Reef gold in quartz in the open cliff face. Bill says we're millionaires! And just as I said it, something came whistling by my cheek. Bill gave one yell and went down on his face with a steel-pointed arrow through him. And before I could move, a rifle cracked and something that felt like a red-hot hammer hit me in the chest and knocked me flat. Knocked me flat! They knocked me flat! Knocked him flat. Jeez, you got fucked up. A war party. They'd stole up on us while we was digging. Cheyennes they was, from the north, and they come out and chanted their scalp songs all over us. Bill was dead and I lay still, all bloody but conscious, pretending I was a stiff too. They scalped Bill and they scalped me. Steve gave an exclamation of horror. Oh yes, said Hardluck tranquilly. It hurt considerable. Fact is, I don't know many things that hurt worse. But somehow I managed to lie still and not let on that I was alive, though a couple of times I thought I was going to let out a whoop and spite myself. Did they scalp you plumb down to the temples? Whoo, asked Steve morbidly. Nah, the Cheyennes never scalped that way. Hardluck ran his hand contemplatively over his glistening skull. They just cut a piece out of the top. Pretty good sized piece, though. And the rest of the hair kinda got discouraged and faded away after the years. Anyway, they danced and yelled for a while, and then they left, and I began to take invoice to see if I was still living. I was shot by the chest, but by some miracle the ball had gone on through without hitting anything important. I thought, though, I was going to bleed to death. But I stuffed the wound with leaves and the webs these large web spiders spin on the low branches of trees. I crawled to a spring which wasn't far away and lay there like a dead man till night. When I came to and lay there thinking about my dead friend and my wounds and the gold I'd never enjoy, then I got out my right mind and went crawling away through the forest, not knowing why I did. I was just like a man that's drunk. I knowed what I was doing, but I didn't know why I was doing it. I crawled, and how long I kept on crawling, I don't know for. I passed clean out, finally, and some buffalo hunters found me. Out in the level country, miles and miles from where I was wounded. I was raving and gibbering and nearly dead. They tended to me, and after a long time my wounds healed, and I come back to my right mind, and when I did, I thought about the gold and got up a prospecting party and went back. But seems like I couldn't remember all what happened just before I got laid out. Everything was vague, and I couldn't remember what way Bill had taken me to get out to the cliff, and I couldn't remember how it looked. They'd seen a lot of landslides, too, and likely everything was changed. Anyway, I couldn't find the lost mine of the Sunset Mountain, and though I've been coming every so often and exploring again, for 40 years, me nor no other living man has ever laid eyes on that gold ledge. Some landslide done covered it up, I reckon. Or maybe I just ain't never found the right cliff. I don't know. I done give it up. I'm getting old. Now I'm running a few sheep and am pretty content. But you know why they call me Hard Luck. And do you think that maybe this Merkin has found your mine and is working it on the sly? Nah, really I don't. 'Twouldn't be the Gilla Merkin to try to conceal in the fact. He'd just come out and claim it and dare me to take it away from him. The old man continued with a touch of vanity. No dub like Gilla Merkin could find something that an old prospector like me has looked for 40 years without finding no how. Silence fell. Steve was aware that the night wind, whispering down from the mountains, carried a strange, dim throbbing, a measured, even cadence, haunting and elusive. Drums, said Hardluck, as if divining his thoughts. Indian drums. Indian drums. Tribes away back up in the mountains. Nothing like them that took my scalp. Navajos, these is. A low-class gang that wandered up from the south. The government give 'em a kind of reservation back in the Sunset Mountains. Friendly, I reckon. Trade with the whites a little. Them drums has been going a heap the last few weeks. Still nights you can hear 'em easy. Sound travels a long way in this land. His voice trailed off into silence. Steve gazed westward where the monstrous shadowy peaks rose black against the stars. The night breeze whispered a lonely melody through the cedar and pines. The scent of fresh grass and forest trees was in his nostrils. White stars twinkled above the dark mountains, and the memory of a pretty, wistful face floated across Steve's vision. As he grew drowsy, the face seemed nearer and clearer, and always through the mists of his dreams throbbed faintly the sunset drums. This is chapter 2, and it's called Mystery. We've been filming for 22 minutes. Let's see how many chapters this bad boy has. 3, definitely. Five. Yeah, looks like 5 chapters. So, we've been running for 23 minutes now. What do you think? You want me to keep going or should I wait? I'll make another one. Have a good night.